Hey folks, we are live with NORMHUNTER episode 5. I'm joined here with NM Todd Bryant, aka StrongChess. Hey Todd, how's everything going?
I am good, Kostya. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's always weird to start the show because we've been talking for the last 10 minutes anyway, but yes, otherwise people don't feel the context. They're like, do they know that they're in the same broadcast together? Like, it's, but anyway, we'll be checking back in with Todd on his training plan that he's been working on for the last several weeks. So let me pull that up. And so Todd has been reading a couple of books here, solving through Perfect Your Chess, which actually. So you know Jesse, of course, and he knows about this show, but I don't think he knew specifically that you were reading this book, Perfect Your Chess, because in his latest
Mhm.
video, he just mentioned it, and he was like, "Yeah, I forgot about this book." Did you watch his test video, by the way, on YouTube the other day?
I did. I took the test. I got the first three and missed the last one.
Same, same.
Yeah, the last one was quite difficult. I remember I not to spoil it, but I had four candidate moves that I calculated and I chose one of them, but the answer was none of my candidate moves.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, if you guys want to know what we're talking about, Jesse just made this video on YouTube where he presents a couple of positions from the games of Kasparov and asks viewers to test themselves to see if they can find the best move or best continuation in all those positions. That was a fun video, and yeah, it's fun if you're like different rated players. You go see how many you get right, and then compare yourself and see how others did as well. So yeah, this book is well known for being very handy to a lot of players in their improvement. And so let's see, you are now, I guess you're in the second section by now.
Yeah, the second section, I'm in the second set of 100. So there's three sections that each have like a lead in with some of Volakeiten's games from positions from his games. And now I'm in the second set of 100 that are pulled from other Grandmasters games. And this section is called Find the Win. So the previous section was called Make a Move. It had like a mix of positions where you're winning, positions where you have to survive somehow. This one is all forced wins.
Oh, find the win. Right. Nice. And how's it going so far?
It's good. The difficulty has reset, so I've been scoring higher on the past several sessions. But yeah, like I was mentioning before the show, and in general, I look forward to these puzzles a lot. Um, have always liked studying chess through puzzles, and these puzzles are sort of fun and unique, and they contain like a lot of sort of beautiful shots. And yeah, it's so far so good.
Cool. And okay, we were discussing the other book as well, How Karpov Wins, which is more of a games collection. And at this point, you said you've gone through about like 2/3 of it.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah.
and you were saying how like you weren't really feeling like excited about going through this book, which I also understand. We should mention it's written in descriptive notation, which is very uncomfortable to go through for players that grew up with like algebraic, because that's the one where it's like rook to queen bishop 3, and then you have to figure out whose rook and what queen's bishop 3 means. Like, does that mean c6 or c3? Because if it's black's turn, it means c6, and if it's white's turn, it means c3.
Right. Right.
And it's not that hard to like figure out what move it is, but then when it goes into variations, then it's just like it's so easy to lose track of the position. I
Yeah, yeah. It's also easy to like if you're playing over the board to like make an incorrect move, and then 10 moves later you realize that you screwed something up and you have to backtrack. This kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's no false check for you, so you can lose a lot of time that way. I think the one book I spent a lot of time on that had descriptive notation was this book called 100 Selected Games by Botvinnik, which is very instructive because Botvinnik was very good at annotating his games and had some really instructive games. Yeah, I just got to like kind of slog through it. So I think it's, although we discussed previously how going through a player who is more positional, more technical would be very useful. I think the most important thing in chess training is doing something that you're enjoying and that you look forward to. So we were talking about you maybe switching this up to either Life and Games of Michael Tall or the Tall Bud Vinnick book, both of which are very interesting. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I own both of those books, and both of them were books that I'd always meant to read because I like crazy sacrificial chess, and the Life and Games book in particular is like a really well-known classic. I know that it was just reviewed on Ben Johnson's book review podcast. So yeah, both of those books have been on my list of things that I've been meaning to read for a while.
Cool. Yeah, and you mentioned you haven't read a lot of game collections in general. I do think that those are some that are, it's hard to explain exactly the value you get from game collections, but somehow it's like almost every strong player that I've met, when I talk to them about chess books, like they've read something by someone, or sometimes a lot of things. I think actually Magnus usually mentions the Kramnik book, like Kramnik's My Life in Games, as something that was very influential on him. And yeah, I think most of the top players, they have like one or two players in their youth that they like read a book of their games, really got into, and that was very like beneficial for their chess understanding. So there definitely is something about like going through the games of a player that really really helps solidify certain aspects of chess that I think are not super obvious, like the idea of planning and trying to understand what your opponent is trying to do and how you're going to react to that. Chess is more than just seeing a position, analyzing which pieces are on which squares, and like deciding the best move based on that. It's a lot more like interaction involved. I'm a big fan of the Kramnik book. I did read that a while ago. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember mentioning to you earlier that reading games collections was always something that I resisted somehow. Like I had this resistance to. I always like to approach studying chess through puzzles, and I've done tons and tons of puzzles over the years in the various like tactics trainers, and I worked through them in books and stuff. I do remember one of my early chess influences, things that really inspired me a lot. The first chess book that I ever picked up was a book called Attacking Chess, and it was by Josh Waitzkin, who's a pretty well-known chess player, and he's the subject of Searching for Bobby Fischer. And then later, I got the old computer program Chessmaster for the PC, and Josh Waitzkin had like a series of annotated video lectures on that software, and his games were extremely inspiring to me, and like his style was something that I tried to emulate. So I remember that being like a big early influence on my chess and sort of a source of inspiration when I was a kid.
Oh, cool. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna switch to the analysis board real quick. I'm gonna put up this puzzle that you sent to me, so people can I'll give people a chance to think about it. But yeah, Searching for Bobby Fischer is such a great movie. Like usually movies that are based on something specific, like chess or whatever, they're usually like not super accurate when it comes to the actual like chess part. But that movie like nailed it when it comes to like what it's like to be like a talented youth, and like there's all this pressure on you in tournaments, and parents are going like crazy and super stressed out. Did you play chess when you were like a young kid?
No, I started chess pretty late. I started chess when I was 13. And so by the time that I was like a stronger class player, I was like almost out of high school. So I actually never played scholastic tournaments. Actually, I went to a national scholastic tournament for the first time last December, because I was taking my son to the kindergarten section of
Nice.
the K through 12 grade nationals. So that was the first time that I got a sense of that whole sort of crazy atmosphere.
Right. Yeah, it's so intense. Yeah, I really liked how they did that movie. So I got a puzzle up here on the analysis board. It's white to play, and is this from the Find the Win chapter?
Yeah, this is number 2. This is one of the early puzzles. It's from a Kachashvili game. Kachashvili is a strong GM that I used to see at the Marshall and some of the CCA tournaments in New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania pretty regularly. And yeah, this is a puzzle that I failed. It contains a shot that that I completely overlooked and was surprised to see in the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll give people a chance to check it out. Also wanted to put up or pull up a puzzle that this one reminds me of, so I'll load it up for next time. I wonder if you've seen this one. It's a pretty famous. It's kind of like a endgame study slash puzzle. But yeah, let me. It's hard to talk and search ChessBase at the same time. Oh, I know where it is.
It is tricky.
Here we go. I'll get it in a sec. So yeah, this one is you said number 2. So the way the book lays it out, it's like I think first 80 problems or so are meant to be 50 problems are meant to be FM strength.
I think it's like the first 40, and then they gradually get harder until the last 10 or so. The last 20, but especially the last 10 are sort of on insane mode, and it's a bunch of really subtle and surprising ideas or things that require a lot of analysis to justify. But the first few dozen or so usually are relatively shallow. They're not super long, and they mostly revolve around finding some shots. And right. If you can find the idea, usually you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we were going through this book, we would always call the solutions, we would nickname them as Volokitin moves. And then that translated to when we were like going through a game and we're like analyzing or something, we would always say like, oh, we need a Volokitin move here, just like a very clear, unexpected move that's by far the best move in the position, and like changes the character of the entire struggle. So this book definitely, I think, tunes your vision into being able to find these kinds of moves. Okay, let me check the chat. I think looks like people have figured it out. Yeah, I mean, actually, I saw Static suggested this Queen G6 Bishop G8 idea, but Queen G6 on move 1, which is of course not working. But a lot of times when you find the right idea, but then you see later why it doesn't work, it's actually an advantage, because it's like you already know what you're looking for, and then you just have to play Rook takes E5 and make it happen.
Right.
So yeah, Rook takes E5 is a nice one. Definitely a candidate move, but yeah, the real tricky part about this position is of course seeing this resource Bishop G8, which is not obvious at first. One of those patterns, like, okay, either you know the pattern, you'll find the move, or you haven't seen the pattern and it'll be hard to find that idea.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but this this pattern of the king getting mated in the corner by the queen, with the rook blocking G8 is one that comes up frequently. But playing Bishop G8 to achieve that is quite nice.
Mm-hmm. Now, one book we talked about off stream, Imagination in Chess, has a lot of these kinds of problems, like whole chapters dedicated to this idea of like you have some idea that you're trying to make work. There's a very clear reason why it's not happening, and so using that information helps you find the right move. It's this idea that the author refers to as reciprocal thinking. Like, we want to get Queen G6 check, the knight is controlling this one, so we remove the defender, and then we get our idea to work. It's very good for building that kind of like mental agility of understanding, like, okay, I have an idea, but I have to first figure out the right move order or switch things up in order to make it happen on the board. So yeah, white takes, black can throw in this check, doesn't seem to change much. We'll just step aside, and yeah, black is not able to take back the piece. Otherwise, if we didn't have this one, black has rook and 2 minor pieces for the queen, so it could be easily surviving here. But
right.
The fact that we're able to grab an extra piece is quite huge, and yeah, white wins here. So this is one you said you missed in your studies, which is totally fine, because you went over the solution.
I remember I was trying to make things in this position like Queen H6, threatening some kind of Bishop G6 or Bishop F5 work, but there's always some like Rook F7 or Rook F6 that saves black there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Rook takes E5 is correct, guys. Someone was asking about team battles. So yeah, I mean, we have a lot going on in the Chess Dojo. We have limited time, but people want to play, and people want to play under a flag or a team, and so we're trying to make that happen. So we're looking at different possibilities, and yeah, so just stay tuned, stay on the Discord, and you'll hear announcements as soon as we make them. The puzzle I was kind of reminded of was this one. Let me know if you've seen this one before. It's white to play and win.
I don't think so. I don't recognize it.
Well, let's solve it. I'll give the Twitch chat a chance as well.
Okay. Oh, I think I've got it. Yeah.
Definitely not too hard once, given the context of seeing the.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
actually,
I trust that you solved it, or not.
Yeah, I was just saying that now that I've looked at it, I actually maybe have seen this in the past, like on Facebook or something. Potentially, I have seen it before.
Yeah, I feel like it's this puzzle gets around. I often see it like every 3 months. Someone will put it on Twitter and be like, or on Reddit, like, "Oh, this is the most beautiful puzzle I've ever seen." So I feel like at some point. Okay, looks like Twitch has figured it out, and yeah, Bishop B8 is the win. Very similar to the previous problem that ended with this weird bishop move, but here the point is rook takes b8, king c7, threatening this one. Black has to take, c takes, and there's no defense to check, and then promoting with a checkmate, let's say a5, and the king doesn't get out. So very, very pretty study. I feel like it's a well-known problem. I see it all the time, but now you guys have seen it as well. Cool. So let's go to that game. If you have the PGN, would you mind loading it into the board?
Yeah, I can pull that up real quick. Awesome. I have a study here on Chess.
So you mentioned you've been working through the Negi repertoire book. Do you have all of those? I think there's like 3 or 4 of them at this point.
There's 4 published. Yeah, 3 on the Sicilian and 1 on the French, Caro, and Philidor. And yeah, I have them all. You can see I actually have 3 of the 4 here by my desk. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, you can see that it's already like a thick kind of brick of theory, and this is only like part of an unfinished set. He owes 2 more books still. I think he's coming out with one this year on minor openings like Alyekin and Perk and Modern and stuff. And then he's going to recommend the Spanish against E4, E5, but that book has not been started yet to my knowledge.
Oh, he hasn't done E4, E5 yet. Yeah, that book is never going to come out. I mean,
yeah, Negi is. I think he's pursuing a PhD in computer science also now. So it's like, difficult timing, I'm sure. But I think that he's really a great author. There are some opening authors that I find just like dry and not inspiring, but I like reading his books, even though the amount of theory is like really difficult for me to manage. I feel like I learn about chess from his books. Like he explains plans like so clearly, just all throughout the books. And some of the attacking ideas that he shows are like super beautiful. So his books are a pleasure to read, even if the sheer amount of stuff that you have to learn is quite difficult.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to bring that up. I think the best opening books are the ones that provide some benefit outside of the actual like moves and theory that they're presenting. That it actually helps your chess to go through the book, go through the lines, read the notes.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of Negi's book, so I definitely get what you're saying. Like he shows a lot of like sample lines. He's like, okay, your opponent's not going to play like this, but just to give you an idea of how the game would go, here's like a sample attack and what that would look like. And then it's like an instructive, like thematic line. It gives you the type of ideas that like, yeah, what you're supposed to be looking for in the position, whether it's a certain sacrifice, a certain motive, something like that. I've always got that from the Avrik books as well, that are obviously very dense and theoretical, but he does a really good job of trying to show like thematic ideas and typical shots and stuff. And then that was definitely one of the driving factors when I was writing my Sicilian book, like over 5 years ago now, is I knew like, okay, in 2-3 years the theory might easily be outdated, but I want people to be able to have like get some benefit out of actually going through the games, seeing the ideas, and getting some like positional benefit out of it, not just the theory.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not easy to achieve. But yeah, Negi has a great lucid style that I think teaches you a lot about chess as you go through all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's take a look. So you're playing white. This is a 90 plus 30 online game, of course.
Yes.
Knight c3, bishop b4. And how have you been able to, or how do you feel you've been able to like manage the like your focus during these games? Because we often talk about how
Yeah.
playing online is a lot harder than in person.
Yeah, it's not. It's still not quite the same thing for me. There's a certain sense. There's a certain feeling that I have when I play an over the board game, especially like when you're like at a hotel somewhere, like kind of removed from reality.
Mm-hmm.
That like nothing exists except for this game, and like the result is just like the most important thing in the world. And I haven't quite been able to capture that yet. Playing these online training games. What I've been doing is playing with a real board. I try to turn my computer off. I use just my phone because it's a little less distracting, I feel, than a big monitor.
Mm-hmm.
So I use my phone. I turn move confirmation on, so I'm unlikely to make a mouse slip and spoil the game. Um, but it's been getting a little better the more I've been doing it. I've played like four of these now, and I'm kind of getting the hang of it more than at the beginning, where I was like really distracted and walking around a lot and looking at stuff, here in the office. But it's still not 100% there yet for me.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting idea, though. Actually, just using your phone, so that yeah, so you're mainly just using the board and then just using the phone to input the moves.
Yeah, because if I have my monitor on, I feel pretty tempted to just like calculate on the monitor. Like it's just like really big and it's there and it's bright.
Yeah.
But the phone is less pleasant to calculate on, so I'm more inclined to look at the board there.
No, that's a cool idea. I hadn't thought about that at all. Yeah, because I remember doing a little bit of like yeah using the online board but also physical board, and yeah, it's hard to switch back and forth. Like okay, you start on the monitor, you play like your opening moves, and then you switch to the board and you're thinking, and then at some point, yeah, you got to switch back, and yeah, it's hard to really get into the groove of the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us through this opening. So the Winawer was a surprise for this game, is that right?
Yeah, so earlier in the tournament, he had played some line in the Steinitz, so meeting knight c3 with knight f6, and he played kind of a specific thing there that I could prepare against without too much trouble. So I was hoping to get that, and uh, there the plans were like very very clear for white. But yeah, he deviated with the Winawer, which I was not prepared for at all. I had played the Winawer a little bit, but like way back in the day, like I don't know, probably like 7+ years ago. So I was not super prepared here at all. I was mostly winging it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Okay, so this is the main line of the Winawer. You play a3. You accept these bad pawns. But they give up their dark square bishop. Here he played a sideline though, so there are a couple of sidelines now. There's queen c7 is one sideline, and queen a5, and then knight e7 is entering the main lines of the Winawer poisoned pawn, where you go queen g4 and you're attacking this pawn, and this is some big tactical mess. But yeah, he plays queen a5, and this is a much more positional idea. The
Mm-hmm.
idea is to stick the queen on a4, where it just annoyingly blockades your queenside pawns and keeps an eye on this pawn on c2. Um, and it's just I have faced it a few times in like blitz and stuff, and I find it a very nettlesome kind of system to play against. That queen is always exerting this pressure, and I'm never quite sure how to develop my pieces. However, I remembered a couple of basic ideas because I recalled some game that my friend had played in this system where we looked up the opening afterwards, and so I recalled that after Queen G4, King F8, the idea was to come back with the queen, just come right back to D1, defending the C2 pawn, basically saying, okay, we've lost a little bit of time, but Black's king is supposedly bad on the F8 square. But at this point, I was totally out of theory. After the game, I learned that Knight F3, giving up this pawn on C2, is also an idea in the position.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, Queen D1.
Yeah, this
now
is
we're out of theory.
Interesting move. Yeah, it's very thematic. Do you remember did you remember the game from the candidates that MVL played against Nepo in the 7th round?
No, I didn't see it.
So that was also a winner where I would recommend checking that one out because it was a really instructive game. He basically used a similar idea. From what I remember, I'm pretty sure that was Knight E7, and yeah, like you mentioned, Queen G4 is the main move here. Queen C7, like poison pawn variation, but lately a lot of the top guys have just been playing H4 here. I think kind of Leela inspired.
Interesting.
With the idea of just pushing H5, H6, or Black will play H6 first. Just doing that first and then deciding what to do later. So I'm pretty sure that game went...
That's interesting. It's not the craziest idea here because Black's kingside is kind of naked. So a little aggression on that side sort of makes sense.
Yeah, and basically it's something very similar. I think it was like Queen C7, H5, H6, Queen... no, not Queen G4. It was... I think it was actually Queen G... In some order, it was like Bishop B5 check, King F8, Queen G4, Rook G8, something like this, and then he went back Queen D1. Now that he like kind of forced this, I'm not sure why Rook G8 was necessary, but there was some detail why this move was needed. And then at some point Black plays B6 and he just like brings this bishop back. I think there was an early Rook B1. I think I'm getting the move order wrong, but check out that game because it was very instructive, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, actually the queen went back to D1 much later, like it was like move 16 or something, but yeah, so Queen A5, Bishop D2, Queen A4. I remember Yuri Shulman playing this line a lot. I think he beat Naka in a game from the US Championship with this. It was pretty critical. But yeah, Queen D1, B6.
Yeah, so B6 is a common idea in the Winawer. They're just planning to play Bishop A6 and eliminate their bad bishop for our good bishop. And so here, I just kind of didn't know what to do. And I made, I think, just like a clear loss of time by playing this move Bishop D3. So this is not a great decision because Bishop A6 is coming. These bishops are going to get traded off. So Bishop D3 is a waste of time. But I wasn't sure what to do here because, okay, something like Knight E2 seems very clumsy after Bishop A6. Knight F3, I wasn't sure that the knight wanted to be here because I would like to organize F4 later, so I felt that the knight would be in the way. I don't know, maybe Knight H3 could be considered, but the main move in the position is one that I didn't consider at all, which is simply to take this pawn with the idea that we have two bishops and we want to blow up the position. We want to open lines for our pieces. And so the basic ideas here are to play Rook B1, maybe to organize C4 one day, and try to seize some kind of immediate initiative. And D takes C5 was a decision I didn't consider all, I think, in the game.
Right, one of those moves, I mean, it doesn't come to mind intuitively. If you've seen the idea before, you'll consider it, but positionally, the move doesn't make a lot of sense, of course, given that white has like doubled c-pawns that are now going to be isolated. If anything, it just feels like we're really hurting our own structure, helping black's structure. But yeah, usually the point is like in this open position, eventually black's king on f8 starts to feel uncomfortable the more pawns that get traded off here. You'll see this move actually in that MVL Nepo game. He does this one. Yeah, I definitely don't blame you for not playing this because, like, okay, you just didn't know the idea. But I am confused though. So, like, you realize bishop a6 is his next move, and then so with bishop d3, did you plan on taking on a6, or was that did you change your mind at this point?
I think I changed my mind at some point, but yeah, I had a confused thought process this last two couple of moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it feels like we just lose a tempo here if we're gonna take on a6, which might not be necessary. I don't know. Sometimes people just play knight f3 in this position, and they let black take on d3. If they want to. I don't know if this is exactly the moment because I don't know if we would want an endgame here with white. But this would be one option. Or if we know we're taking on a6, you mentioned in your notes you're not sure if, or you just said I think you're not sure if you want your knight on f3 or on e2. Yeah, maybe move
Yeah.
like h4 then is kind of the flexible route.
Oh, it's interesting. I didn't consider h4 at all.
Yeah, just doing something like this, which is typically helpful for white. Um, Maybe it's not the right moment, but yeah, it could be a more uh, logical approach to the position in terms of just saving some time.
Yeah.
Um, let's go through DC though. So you have some lines here. So BC knight f3. Now, did you check the Negi repertoire after the game?
Yeah, this is what Nagy recommends. D takes e5.
I see. Cool. So take
Yeah, knight
87.
f3.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he doesn't give bishop a6 as the main line, but he mentions that like the general idea whenever they play bishop a6 is that we're going to take and play rook b1, and the idea is that the rook might come to b7, and suddenly like black's position is a little loose, and we have the initiative, and we're going to try to exert some pressure for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would wonder if this is even one of those positions where, like, we don't mind going into this endgame because
Yeah, this is exactly right. Like this is an idea in the main line is that in some bishop a6 queen takes a6 variation we play queen e2, and we can just trade the queens, but our pieces are still good at the end. It's hard for him to get developed. We're going to put a rook on the seventh, and it's not easy for black.
yeah, at this point it's like, yeah, not just about the king but more about the rook that is just not getting. So yeah, it's nice to know which endgames you can go for because this one feels counterintuitive at first. Our structure is bad and we're trading queens, but yeah, once the rooks get in, everything becomes more or less clear.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
Of course, there's also this idea, which you've probably seen before, to push a4 and bring the bishop back via c1 and a3 to up the pressure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So this makes sense. Um, okay, so bishop d3, bishop a6, take, knight e2, and then pushing f4.
Yeah. So f4 is a move that the computer hates.
Oh
But
wow.
like basically playing f4 and something like this was sort of the only idea that I had to make progress um, in the position. Like it just felt like I had to play it. Um, but the problem with f4 is that black can just shut it down right away
Mm-hmm.
with the move h5. H5 is like really nice, and now if knight g3 trying to jam in at f5, he just plays g6, and this position is actually like really concerning for white because it just seems like you can't do anything, and black can just kind of he can fix his king, he can uh, uh, make plans to break through on the queen side at some moments, and white suddenly is just going to be waiting with the king side totally shut down.
Yeah, this is definitely like just a French gone wrong. I used to be a French player, so to me, actually, h5 was like my first instinct in this position. Whenever you think white is threatening g4, you should just go h5 or get ready to play h5 on the next move to kind of like break up their structure. Sorry guys, I didn't realize the volume was off. I usually just use the same settings from show to show. Looks like Todd is a little bit louder, so let me turn Todd down a bit. I think because I'm typically working with Jesse, and Jesse's mic is often quiet, whereas Todd's mic is great and right in front of him. Hopefully that's better now. I turned Todd down a bit.
Okay, hopefully the volume sounds better now.
Yeah, but people can let me know if it's still mismatched. Um, yeah, now it's like, well, black traded off the bad bishop. It got great structure. King is gonna finally allow the rooks to connect, and unless white can play for like f5, bishop g5, this kind of thing, which doesn't seem to be too strong here, then white is gonna be suffering.
Yeah, this is like a total nightmare now for white positionally, I think.
Yeah. Now I wonder if maybe the knight would have been better on f3 here. Now it might be. No, I think d4 is not hanging yet, so maybe we could have considered f4 here to get the knight out this way, and then be able to put the knight on g5. But it might still be similar. Oh, and actually, I just realized I don't know what's going on here. I thought bishop b4 check was gonna win, but now I see knight takes b4 is possible.
Oh, knight takes b4 is a little trick. Yeah, yeah.
But maybe white doesn't have to do anything immediate. I'm actually not even sure this is a pawn that black really wants to take in this position. This might be problematic for black.
Can you go here?
Oh, sorry.
Queen e4 check at the end.
Oh yeah. Queen e4. I was thinking just king f2. Just playing for the initiative. And I don't really believe it, to be honest, but
yeah,
maybe it's interesting. Probably it's not enough. So yeah, it makes this move very, very unpleasant. I don't know. Maybe we have to. Bishop b3 feels very slow. Yeah, tough. Tough position at this point. Let's see, knight e2. Let's stick with knight e2. Knight e7. Castles. Rook c8. Yeah, it's so tough to find a good plan here for white. I don't.
Yeah, what I know is what the computer recommended, but they were not very human understandable moves to me. It was recommending ideas like rook b1 and also ideas like bishop g5. Neither of which are super obvious to me. I'm not sure why I'm putting the rook on the b file. Like, okay, a3 might not be hanging immediately, but I'm undefending this pawn and I'm pointing the rook into the b6 pawn. So I just don't quite understand rook b1. Bishop g5 as a general concept makes a little more sense because maybe bishop takes c7 is annoying in some lines. Like if we go queen d2, we might be threatening bishop e7 one of these days, but it's still not the most obvious human idea to me to play bishop g5 here.
Right. I mean, sometimes the computer is just good at like finding moves where it's like the opponent can't exactly improve their position, but the move that's suggesting isn't exactly improving our position. It's just kind of keeping the status quo and just using tactics to like hold the opponent at bay. Like, okay, you can't advance this because there's some like trick here, which the engine is just like great at this, but humans are terrible because humans, like, we need a plan to improve our position.
Yeah.
We're not good at just playing based on concrete details. From what I understand, rook b1, I think basically white is never worried about giving up the a pawn, not just for tactical reasons, but just like, yeah, as long as black's rooks are disconnected, we're always happy to open lines on the queen side and try to punish them for this. As far as what the rook is actually doing, like, it's hard to say without DC BC, like if the rook is going to be useful there. I do know that the rook does come to b4 sometimes. Actually, in both Nepo Winawer games from the candidates, so he played the Winawer against Alexienko and then against MVL, white put the rook on b4. And I think Nepo underestimated it both times. Against Alexienko was actually a nice exchange sack, where black could just, he like put his knight on c6 and white left his rook on b4, and it was like knight b4, a b4, and then white just got this like very, very nice grip. Whereas against MVL, there was no knight, but the rook was just kind of dominating the file. So maybe there is something about intending to take, and then if a piece takes, putting the rook on b4. If a pawn takes, then at least we get the rook b7.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's plausible, actually.
Yeah, it's surprising that f4 is not the idea, but I guess that's just how it goes. Like black just shuts it down. But
Yeah.
he goes king g8, which okay. So g4. Now h5 is
Yeah.
thematic, but I guess not good here.
Yeah, I think that h5 is not quite as strong as before. Now that I'm getting my play in with f5, I guess king g8 and h5 um, has just been a little slow. So yeah, it's definitely more concerning for him to try to play something like this, take this pawn right away,
Mm-hmm.
and try to take advantage of the fact that these pawns are weak over here on the king side. Maybe something like this, and black is exerting some pressure here.
Right. So yeah, this is the computer suggestion, right?
Yes, yeah. Although I think that during the game, I was concerned about c takes.
Uh-huh. And if cd4, then black is just taking on c2.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And this is usually a problem when the queen, either we trade it off or it becomes super active, and yeah, that doesn't work. So we have to take with the knight, which okay, positionally not great, but dynamically supports f5. Knight c6, bishop e3. And then black has to play really active here to kind of to punish white, because I mean, king is still on g8, but yeah, there's just so many weaknesses on the c file that black is. It's still not super easy position to play. I like this move c4. I don't know what this is about or how it works, but interesting suggestion.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, very inhuman move, but apparently the computer has some point here. Yeah, I mean, this is why I feel like the positions are not easy for black to play either, because like, okay, CD and black apparently would have been better, but I don't know. It's not easy to play on the king side with your king on g8, rook on h8.
Right, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there was some point there I might have missed. CD, queen c2.
Oh, he was looking for a rook c1 tactic, but I think it doesn't quite work here.
Yeah, I mean, rook is defended. So I think black might be able to just go into the end game and then be able to get the other rook out in time.
Yeah, I think what he was pointing out is if like black made some other move, then there's something like this in the position.
Yeah, this would be nice. Knight c7, rook c1, and yeah, a lot of counterplay. Or queen d7 also looks very annoying. For sure, this is where things go really, really wrong for black. And it's like, what are you doing with this rook on h8? Like, how is this position playable? Interesting. Okay, so he goes h5, you go f5, which looks nice.
Yeah, f5. I mean, at this point, f5 has got to be right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you played this one. And do you remember what was your time like at this point?
I had burned up a considerable amount of time, which tends to happen when I'm confused in the opening.
Right.
Let's see. I can actually. I can actually check that. But I think I had used like at least half an hour, maybe more by this point.
That's not bad actually for 90 plus 30, half hour.
So G4 F5 has been played. Yeah. So okay. So I was down to 50 minutes here. So not the worst time pressure. Although soon I'm going into longish things on the next several moves and get into like time pressure before too long.
Yeah, no, I think that's not bad at all. One of the warrior students, weak chess actually, was saying she apparently took her um, move times from her tournament games for the last year or
Yeah.
so and like averaged them out and found that by move 20 in like a time controls where it's like you have 40 moves for 2 hours and then you get additional time, or maybe 40 moves, 90, 100 minutes or something.
Something like
Um,
that. Yeah, I think it was 100 minutes.
so yeah, by move 20, on average, she's down to like 25 minutes, which is very low, I think. I see it in a lot of games. Like you have like 20 minutes left on move 20 to make 20 more moves. Here it's a little bit different. It's 90 plus 30 for the whole game. So you're not really worried about move 40 so much as just wanting to stay within reach of your opponent so that you're not getting too low relative to your opponent.
Yeah.
So 50 minutes at this point, I think is pretty reasonable, given that you've been on your own for the last several moves.
Yeah, but that said, I was down already a half an hour on the clock, which is always quite undesirable, and it got considerably worse, where I was down like an hour or something,
Um,
uh, uh, pretty bad at some points.
but maybe Black was just playing kind of too quickly as well. Now, what's the idea? So let's say he just went for HG4 here. What was your follow up here?
Um, that's a good question. What was I planning here? Um, oh, I think that in general, I was planning to take and play some knight f4 idea. So
Mm-hmm.
knight f4 right away, he can probably take on f5. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe if we take, and then play knight f4, we're attacking this and we're attacking this, and our pieces are coming to life.
Yeah, this looks really great. So he instead goes CD, which I think makes sense because now that you're just going for this crazy attack, Black needs to open the position and open up your king. Try to get some counterplay this way. So take.
Yeah.
Knight c5. Okay, logical. Take. Now you take here, which also makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, the idea more than just snatching a pawn is to give my queen the g4 square and open up the g file, so create some new lines for my pieces.
Mm-hmm. I guess the other move here would be maybe like queen f3.
Yeah, queen f3. I'm trying to remember if I considered this. Perhaps queen e8 right away.
Mm-hmm.
And this queen's a bit annoying. It's coming to g6. It's guarding the h5 pawn, and knight e4 is
Yeah.
coming with tempo soon.
Yeah, definitely not an easy position for white. I think queen e8 kind of holds everything. Okay, so take knight c6, queen g4.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
somehow things have gotten a little worse for white. Like putting his knights over here on the queen side with the queen still on a4 has been a little wrong. So like white was probably in big trouble out of the opening, but now it's become some kind of unclear, closer to equal type of mess.
Yeah, super messy. Um, so okay, you give this line here with knight takes c6.
Yeah, so this was like the important decision here. I just assumed that this knight on d4 is such an important piece that it's like critical to just maintain the initiative and bring new pieces into the game. And so I think that I didn't consider knight takes c6, knight takes c6 at all. The idea is here we're still up a pawn for the time being, and we can continue to flow our pieces in.
Right. So just trying to understand why. So well, let me see what happened in the game. So queen g4. Oh, it takes on e5. Okay, so this gets a little bit. Okay, this gets a little bit hairy. So knight c6, we just trade off this knight. Yeah, rook c6 feels strange. So queen c6, queen g4, and yeah, it's just this rook is really just stuck, and we're playing h6, and
H6 is coming, yeah.
just trying to like maybe double on the F file, and yeah, it looks
It's still hardly simple. Like just looking at this position with fresh
94.
eyes now,
Yeah.
like knight e4 seems to seize back a little bit of initiative. I don't know. Maybe I throw in h6 anyway for the time being. I do this with tempo and then deal with the bishop later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean rook h7, and yeah, how to continue here.
Yeah, I want to just ignore this pawn in some way if possible, like maybe play bishop e3 and do this, although that would hang a rook right now, I guess. So
I don't know if this move is worth it, but queen g6 funnily works because
oh, there's a funny backbank.
yeah,
Back there. Yeah.
that's one of the funniest mates I've ever seen. But but the problem with this move, I think, I don't like queen e8. It's kind of like, and then we might have to trade queens all of a sudden, which would be really unfortunate. So it might not be a great move.
Yeah. Yeah, I suspect also maybe that bishop e1. Oh, that's dropping h6.
Right. Yeah, no, I get the feeling we're definitely not worried about the c pawns here. So yeah, let's try bishop e3. And
So I was concerned most about queen takes c3 here.
oh, but
Oh,
e6.
but we can take on e6 with check.
Yeah, this one seems pretty big. And then like rook f3 or something there.
Yeah, rook f3 is hanging this guy for the moment, so we have to do something else.
Right,
but,
sorry. Mm-hmm.
But
maybe rook e1. Yeah.
yeah, it feels like there should be something. Dropping this pawn is probably not good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. It wouldn't have been immediately obvious to me that trading the knights, I mean, it kind of simplifies your attack in a way where, yeah, the pieces that are left on the board are just kind of like clearly in your favor. Okay, black has one trump, like this e4 square, but other than that, it's like everything else just seems to be in white's favor here.
Yeah, it should be mentioned, I guess, that if rook takes c6, I think the idea was queen f3.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like the threats on the f file are considerable, and black's pieces are all screwed up.
Yeah. This move just feels so like it breaks black's coordination so much that this one I would feel like is just really dangerous. So you went queen g4, it takes on e5. Were you expecting this one?
Yeah, and I just thought that somehow I would play queen f4 or queen g5, like attack the knight again, and then develop my rook somehow and keep fighting for the initiative. This was my general idea.
Yeah, I mean, intuitively, it looks like a very dangerous position for black with all the open files. Yeah, I'm not sure if we're really upset about losing this e-pawn. So queen g5.
Yeah, so now the time situation, by the way, I'm down to 20 minutes now, which is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, that's low. Where did the time go? I mean, here you have like 50 minutes, so cd4, knight d4, I assume, is probably a quick decision.
Let's see. I spent like 9 minutes on f takes e6, 18 f takes e6, which is probably not good. Another 9 minutes on g takes h5, and then another 9 minutes on queen g4. So this is actually like a common time management problem that I have slipped into in lots of games, where I just slip into several consecutive overthinks on moves that don't necessarily require that much analysis. Like, I think that these moves, queen g4, f takes e6, are fairly natural. Like, they're kind of clearly my idea in the position. And none of them are really critical moves. So 3 10-minute thinks in a row on these moves is bad, and probably just a sign of low confidence or a little bit of confusion in the position than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's not totally unreasonable. It is a complicated position. It does feel like, yeah, like maybe you could have spent 9 minutes total on these three moves, like take GH5
Yeah,
and Queen G, like 10 minutes to kind of figure out this plan. Um, I don't know. I don't know if it's really that bad. I think if you don't understand the position, you should be spending time.
hmm
I would only be concerned if it was like a real pattern of doing this in positions that really don't call for it. This one I'm not sure, but yeah, if you've had other experiences in like quieter positions where maybe you could have come up with a plan a little bit faster, then that might be something to think about as well.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, now unfortunately it's like definitely need this time to calculate. Because you
yeah.
go for rook takes f7 here, which feels very intuitive, but
Yeah,
it's gonna be
I
concrete.
played for like all the time that I spent on the other moves. I think I played Rook takes f7 pretty quickly. Yeah, I spent uh like 20 seconds. Like I had planned it on knight f7. And I just felt like something has to work. Like I draw his king out into the center. My rook can come into the game with tempo. Suddenly, like all of my pieces are good.
Hmm.
Um, so it felt like it should probably work. But yeah, actually, Rook takes f7 is not really working out.
Hmm. And I guess I should ask this, but with Queen G5, this was already your intention, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Otherwise, you could still play Queen G3 and um, or Queen E2 even could be a possibility to as options just so that we're not getting hit with Knight F7 later. Um,
Right, right.
so yeah, let's go through your analysis here. So so your idea was to go Queen G6 and take this one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. So black goes Queen D7. Let's see, kind of feels like an only move. So Rook H7 just seems like um, well, Rook H7, I don't know, feels very flimsy. Maybe
Yeah,
Queen D7 seems like White has a lot here, but I guess White doesn't have
Rook,
enough.
Rook h7 back there, I think was dropping a rook to knight takes c5, and there's a fork on e6.
Yeah, no, I was thinking Rook C5. But I'm sure there's like back rank problems.
Yeah, so something looks sketchy there.
Yeah, maybe check and Rook F1 and
Yeah, something simple like that could be quite dangerous, or even just rook e1 right away is threatening another back rank mate.
yeah, Rook E1 is also, yeah, Rook C8 Queen E6 again. So
Yeah,
thanks Static. We'll see you later. Yeah, just tag me on Discord, and it's your job to ask questions, and it's my job to decide if I'm too busy to respond or not. So it's all you. Um, yeah, Queen D7 makes a lot of sense, and um, oh, let's go back. So you mentioned that this move Rook E1 is best.
yeah. This was the computer move. By the way, I wasted some valuable time um, analyzing this sacrifice. You can tell me if this looks like it intuitively should or should not work to you. But I was staring at this knight takes e6 for a while.
Um, yeah, I would be pretty skeptical of this. I mean, is 96 losing for black?
No, no, it doesn't work at all. Black
Oh,
can take
okay.
back multiple. He can take back multiple ways.
Oh, I
Uh,
see. Mm-hmm.
yeah, King takes e6 is really clear. Um, Knight takes e6. You check, and my idea was to play something like this, but just Queen d7 is working.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what tempted me here was that if like Rook c6, there are ideas like Queen takes g7, or
Right.
perhaps even on Queen c6. There's uh, ideas like this because I don't know, this is some stupid mate or something,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
but uh, yeah, just Queen D7 holds everything together. But I think I spent a considerable amount of time calculating this before I eventually rejected it,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah, it might be a mistake when you're down to 20 minutes.
yeah,
Um,
I think it was just a little bit of misplaced intuition there.
right. Yeah, at that point it's like you have to be yeah, you have to guess correctly. If you think it's working, then you calculate and you make it work, or you just play it, and if you're wrong, you're wrong. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I guess so. I was asking because yeah, if King takes D6 is like the only move, then I would be very I would be I don't know if I'd be like super optimistic, but I would definitely be interested in this line. I would feel it's a mistake not to calculate it. If both knight e6 and king e6 seem to be working, then it's like, yeah, maybe.
yeah, yeah.
But
It's
sometimes this
practical to
stuff,
ditch it at that point.
right? No, but sometimes it does work out. I mean, we've seen tons of examples where it maybe doesn't look intuitively like it's going to be checkmate, but the king is just open and there's a lot of resources. So sometimes, yeah, you get to this position and then it turns out that black has no defense exactly because of like this kind of stuff and that like bishop f4, bishop g5 stuff. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's definitely not the a bad move to consider in general. It's just that you were already low on time, so maybe at this point it wasn't right. So it's always
Yeah,
easier to
yeah,
say, in hindsight. Now the engine was giving rook e1, queen d7, and knight f3.
yeah, yeah. Just I mean, in hindsight, this actually makes a lot of sense. Like I'm kind of resolutely improving my pieces. E5 is going to be a very good square for the knight, and black can't currently contest it with his knight.
Yeah.
So this plan actually makes a lot of sense. But such a regrouping, like it wasn't clear to me. Like it's not something that I would find quickly.
No,
It's
it's
more of
not
an idea
intuitive.
that I would find after searching for a while. You know?
Yeah. I mean, this knight is like, yeah, it's already on a very good target, and we have queen g6, so it's hard to consider this kind of move. I guess the point is like king g8, we play knight e5 anyway, and then we might
Mhm.
even be getting knight g6 and knight e7, and yeah, once we see all this, and it's like, oh yeah, it like looks so
Yeah,
good. But no,
yeah,
not easy to find during a game. Um,
yeah. I think that black is still supposed to be fine in those positions, although in that kind of position, you have good practical chances as the attacking side. I think.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So we give check, we take queen d7. Now he wants queen f7, which is a real bummer.
Yeah. Now things are falling apart actually. So um,
Mm-hmm.
I sort of needed to uh, understand that this was running out so quickly and find something else earlier.
Mm. I mean, yeah, if you had more time and you see queen d7 in your calculation, you might conclude that black is doing all right. Question in the chat: is the idea of rook e1 to sack the exchange if when black plays knight e4? Yeah, I mean at that point, because his knight e5 check is starting the queen. It's not even a sack at this point. It's just knight e4. Black doesn't have time. These are taking and going knight e5. But if knight e4 here, this
94
would be
right
an
away.
interesting
I think I should
question.
have some queen g6.
Yeah, queen g6, right. So concretely, black is not in time to establish the defense here. Yeah, interesting. Um, so definitely this game. I mean, I don't think you lost this game, right?
Yeah, but I should have. I was like -9 at some point. He missed a tactic, and then I confused the issue. But I was dead lost at some points.
Right, right. So yeah, to me, I'm like such a I'm always looking at like the opening. I'm like the opening is the reason why you got like a lost position, right? But there's there's so much more action after this point anyway. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
almost doesn't even matter because black is a winning position. Doesn't matter. It's sharp enough like that they're going to give you chances. Though not everyone will. Some players are very good at just shutting it all down and not allowing the opponent back in. So let's see what happens. So you take rook e1. Okay, queen g4. Rook e5 is weird.
Yeah, it's kind of a computer move, but it has some point of just trying to go after these pawns and just making the endgame difficult for him.
Yeah.
Like if we win the d pawn, he's gonna have to fight for a long time, even if he's up in exchange and objectively winning to convert this.
Right. Now one part that's weird about this line is that apparently here the engine gives rook g5, which Jesse was just talking about this. He would say this move is like a blunder in this position. Because
Why?
When we're playing down the exchange, we want to keep the rook as long as possible. Actually, it's a good question. Have you heard this rule before at all?
I don't think so. And actually, I was gonna say the opposite in this position where I felt like the two rooks were dangerous because there are a lot of open lines, and so trading one off maybe makes things a little easier for us.
Interesting. Wow. Weird. I guess this is not well known, but yeah, if anything, it makes things easier for the opponent. The simple way I can explain it is like if you keep your rook on the board, you have a rook that can help your bishop. So one day in this position, for example, maybe you get bishop c3 and then you're threatening rook to the 7th rank with counterplay. If you trade off the rooks, you never get this possibility. The rook is free to do whatever it wants against the bishop, and it just dominates, and the king can come out and just use the light squares without any fear. The way Jesse explains it is like you need the rook to attack the squares that the bishop doesn't.
Yeah, I guess also there are a lot of places in a rook versus bishop endgame where the bishop is just helpless to defend certain squares or pawns, and,
Right.
and with the rook on, you can hold those squares.
Yeah. So in general, it's considered like the side with the extra exchange is actually usually trying to trade rooks. The side down the exchange wants to avoid the trade. Now there could be exceptions, like if your king is on h3 and you're just getting mated with the two rooks on the board, then you might have no choice but to trade rooks. But I think we would consider that like a serious concession.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vishnu's game yesterday, he had sacked the exchange and it was in the end game, and that was definitely a position where like he as black had some chances against the opponent's king, but only if he has a rook on the board that can one day threaten to like hit the 7th rank or attack the king in some way. So yeah, this move I would say, even if the engine says it's best, I think from a human point of view, it's not very practical, because these types of positions I think are very easy for black when they can just literally put all of their pawns on light squares, and then the rook is free to just do anything. Another exception I would mention is if you have some strong passed pawns and you see that by trading rooks your bishop is just escorting the pawns and black has no defense, then yeah, by all means you can simplify into that situation and just win the game.
Yeah.
So okay, you keep the queens on the board. I think practically speaking, this is probably what I would do as well. I don't think I would believe in
especially
rook e5.
low on time. It's not natural to trade the queens here.
Yeah. No, I would be really doubtful of any fortress in this position. Because the thing about these endgames is like, okay, you put the pawn on h4. And it's like pawn on g6. And it's like, okay, the bishop and pawn are defending each other. Let's say we forget about the queen side, because of course the problem is the rook just switches over to a6, right? And just starts attacking everything. But if we just stick to like g6, h4, black will put the king on g4 or something, and then just take the pawn on h4, and then white just can't do anything there. So it's very tough. Yeah. Okay, so queen g4, rook f8, h6.
Yeah, and now he can just take the pawn. That's the problem.
That's cute. That's cute. So he goes rook h7. Now, was your opponent still playing quickly at this point?
He was probably playing a little quicker than he should have been playing. Let's see. So he was down to he had like an hour left, and he spent a few minutes on this move.
Right.
But yeah, this is definitely probably around the time where he should be looking for a knockout punch and spending a little longer.
Yeah, I mean he should recognize that like black is better and maybe winning and right. So h6 rook h7 this screams to me as someone who like just wants to win the game as safely as possible.
Yeah. Rook h7 is like intuitively overly defensive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like a blitz move. It's like, okay, rook h7, I'm not losing, game continues. But your
yeah,
opponent,
yeah.
he's definitely strong enough to find rook h6. It's just that I think the mindset he wasn't looking for that like real like most precise way.
Yeah, he also may have been trusting me a little. Sometimes your opponent plays something aggressive like h6, and it looks kind of tactical, and perhaps you just assume that it can't be a blunder. But
Yeah.
here he can just snap the pawn.
Mm-hmm. So okay, rook h7, queen g3.
Yeah, so now h6 is safe again.
Mm-hmm. King h8, bishop f4. Wow.
Yes. So this is your same back rank idea that you
Nice.
spotted earlier. Yeah. So it's important that I have this. Otherwise, it's like um, going to be hope like he's taking on h6. But now we also have the idea of bishop e5 if he takes on h6, and we can hold things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a nice move. You wrote like a resilient move. Yeah, totally agree. Just makes things hard for black, makes things tricky, and actually it happens quite a bit when if a player misses a somewhat complicated win and then a somewhat simple win, and then
Yeah.
the next time they get a chance, it'll be a little bit more complicated, and so they're even less likely to find it at that point. Like your opponent had okay,
Right.
simple knockout rook takes h6, missed that one. Now to get an advantage, I don't know. I mean, intuitively, I would feel uh, uh, very uncomfortable here as black.
Yeah. There's a bit of a momentum thing, and yet black's going to actually have to do a considerable extra amount of work now. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, I see. Yeah, best move was king g8. Yeah, that's impossible. He just played king h8. Now to go back king g8, that's tough.
Yeah.
So rook g8.
Yeah, rook g8 is natural, but it runs into this problem.
King h1. Why not bishop e5 here? Oh, rook takes h6. Okay, so king h1. He goes d4 and offers a draw here.
Yeah, he like thought for a few minutes and offered a draw, which is very surprising because I had like 10 minutes and he had still close to an hour, like 50 minutes or something like that. Um, and I mean, I was actually really scared after d4. Like I hadn't seen it at all, and it introduces this idea of queen d5, um, preparing to take on h6 in some way and
Mm-hmm.
terrorize my king again. And yeah, it's quite concerning. It wasn't obvious for me what to do here. Um, However, I do have an interesting move that keeps things unclear. So I can play the move h3. Um, so stepping out of the way of these queen d5 check ideas, so that like my king isn't getting pinned on the G file. But I just felt that in general, he can always basically force a draw in these positions by playing G takes H6. And that here I wouldn't have anything better than just playing Bishop E5, trading everything off and going into some drawn ends game. But that also I might be getting into trouble by playing H3 as well. And in addition, I had so much less time that I took the draw here. But I'm curious because there was also the fact that like my opponent had shown some definite negative momentum in the past few moves, offering a draw. Obviously, he's showing a big lack of confidence in his position, and maybe I should have played on to try to trick him somehow. What would you have done in this situation?
Yeah, no, that's a really important question.
I should add that I knew that my opponent was like lower rated than me at least in like his Lichess ratings, but I didn't have a sense of his classical strength.
Right. I mean, well, the thing is like your rating is not on the line. So I think if it's like a tournament game, then I'm more inclined to play on, because accepting a draw against low rated player is a little bit like accepting defeat, a little bit. Not, it should be less. I've also gotten in trouble a lot by losing games where, you know, I didn't have to take so much risk.
Yeah.
You know, in a training game, okay, there's something to be said about like just play on because it's training and it doesn't matter, but the time disadvantage is pretty serious.
Yeah.
You said you're at 10 minutes here, right?
Yeah. And I should add that my feeling at the time was that I was objectively losing, which turns out to be not true, but that was not obvious to me here with this diagonal opening up for Black's queen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially if you don't see like h3, king h2, and you're kind of safe here. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
simple position. It's definitely kind of a toss up for me.
Yeah, it's hard not to be. It's hard to be convinced that after a move like h3 that he can't somehow like open up the g file and get in some check on this diagonal and go after your king.
I mean, this one I'm never worried about this one just because of like bishop e5, and I just believe in these pins so much that here I would feel like white is not worse. For sure not worse is what I would think. I don't know if that's right, but I would think only white could be better in this kind of thing. I mean, I guess
I think that's correct here. Objectively correct.
at some point we're getting king h7 and like take. I mean, unless is there something else other than taking?
I doubt it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Just, you know, queen d3, queen g6. So yeah, I think we would have to. I mean, maybe here we're just getting a risk-free advantage with an extra pawn or something. So I don't know. Maybe black has something else like queen d5. So it would really kind of depend on how I feel in the moment. If if I feel like I've been worse the whole game, and you probably felt like you've been worse last couple moves, or last 10 moves maybe. I mean, I'm much more inclined to kind of like, okay, let's just like breathe a sigh of relief and just take the draw. If I was feeling motivated, I definitely see a reason to play on here, just based on just the power of this bishop. It's hard to, it's just hard to play around the bishop on e5 when we're playing black in this situation, with the king kind of sheltered on h8.
Yeah.
The interesting question here is if like a high rated player offers you a draw, because then it's like, well, that means you're better. It's like high rated player offers you a draw, it means you're better in the position 100%.
Yeah.
So then the question is like, you have enough confidence to kind of like to continue, which is always
that
tough.
would be hard here.
We got to wrap up the show real quick. One piece of advice I'll give you and everyone else that's kind of helpful for me is during the game, if you have a good position against a higher rated player, you have to kind of be mentally prepared for the draw offer, because it might come at some point, and if you're not ready, you know, it can really throw you for a loop, because you're suddenly in this struggle, like, oh, do I accept the draw and get a good result, or do I play for the win and go for a great result, because I know the position is good for me and I know they're nervous, like if I find the right moves I can win this one, but like I'm not sure I can do it. It's a real struggle. So what I like to do is I kind of like cross a point of no return mentally. So at some point, if I have a good position, I just tell myself, okay, no draw, that's it. And then I've made the decision. And so if they offer a draw, I already know, like, no, I'm playing on. I'm trying to win the game. If I don't play on for a win here, when will I play on for a win? And then it kind of makes things easier for you, so you don't have to waste time later on kind of like mulling over the decision.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not committed to anything. So if you mess up, you know, you can still make a draw. Like if you feel like you're no longer better or something, or you can still bail out into a draw if you feel like things have gone wrong.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough. That's one of the big things, actually, when, you know, just tying it back into the show, playing for a norm, is that at some point you're going to have to start beating some IMs and GMs, and psychologically it's very tough. They make it hard for you. their titles make it hard for you because you know who you're going up against, and of course they're very resilient and resourceful. So it really takes a lot of mental strength to convert a big advantage against a strong player.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one of my most recent like norm tournaments was the New York International in like 2016, something like that, where I had three winning positions against IMs, and I failed to win all three. They were like various degrees of like winning with complications or just completely, utterly like up material with no counterplay
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. But yeah, for one reason or another, like in all three games, I was nervous. In all three games, they did tricky things, and I ended up drawing all three of those games.
Well, at least you drew. That's nice.
Yeah, it's definitely better than than losing.
Yeah. That's that very very common story and very common like thing that we just eventually get over with enough experience. Like you've been there before, having a winning position, and I don't think you never stop being like at least a little bit nervous. But yeah, it certainly becomes more manageable.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for this episode. We will be back next week with more chess and higher level chess talk. So thanks, Todd, for joining me.
Thanks, Kostya. See you guys next time.